Hi friends, I'm Max Lucado. Welcome to Fresh Hope. I'm so glad you've joined me. You know, God called David a man after his own heart. What did he see in this shepherd who fell short as often as he stood tall? Well, in this 4-episode series based on my book, Facing Your Giants, we will explore the life of David and learn how the Lord helped him conquer Goliath. If you're ready to face your giants, I'd love to share some fresh hope and courage with you. 1 Samuel 17 opens with a daunting scene of the Valley of Elah. Goliath stares down from the hillside, and only disbelief keeps him from laughing. He and his Philistine herd have rendered their half of the valley into a forest of spears, a growling, bloodthirsty gang of hoodlums boasting BO and barbed wire tattoos. Goliath towers above them all, 9 feet 9 inches tall in his stocking feet, wearing 125 pounds of armor and snarling like the main contender at the Worldwide Wrestling Federation Championship night. He wears a size 20 collar, a 10.5 hat, and a 56-inch belt. His biceps burst, his thigh muscles ripple, and his boasts belch through the canyon. This day I defy the ranks of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other. 1 Samuel 17 and verse 10. Who will go mano a mano conmigo? Give me your best shot. He and his bloodthirsty Philistine herd are ready for a fight. Who would dare take the offer? No Hebrew volunteers until David. David just showed up this morning. He left his sheep to deliver food to his brothers on the battlefront. And that's where David hears Goliath defying God, and that's when David makes his move. The slender, beardless boy kneels by the brook, and mud moistens his knees. Bubbling water cools his hand. Were he to notice, he could study his handsome features in the water. Hair the color of copper, tanned, ruddy skin, and eyes that steal the breath of Hebrew maidens. He searches not for his reflection, however, but for rocks, stones, smooth stones, the kind that stack neatly in a shepherd's pouch, rest flush against a shepherd's leather sling, flat rocks that balance heavy on the palm and missile with comet-crashing force into the head of a lion, a bear, or, in this case, a giant. 1 Samuel 17 and verse 40 says, David chose 5 smooth stones from a nearby brook and put them in his shepherd's bag. And with his sling in his hand, he began making his way toward Goliath. Goliath scoffs at the kid in verse 43, saying, Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? Scrawny David, brutish Goliath. What odds do you give David against his giant? Better odds, perhaps, than you give yourself. Your Goliath doesn't carry a sword, but he brandishes blades of unemployment or abandonment, abuse, or depression. Your giant doesn't parade up and down the hills, but he prances through your office, your bedroom, your classroom, and he brings bills you can't pay and a future you can't face. You know the roar of Goliath. Before David showed up, Goliath taunted the Israelites. Verse 16 says, For 40 days, twice a day, morning and evening, the Philistine giant strutted in front of the Israelite army. Yours does the same. He's your first thought of the morning, your last worry at night. Goliath dominates your day. How long has he stalked you? Goliath's family was an ancient foe of the Israelites. Joshua drove them out of the promised land 300 years earlier. He destroyed everyone except the residents of Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod. Gath bred giants, and Goliath called it home. Saul's soldiers saw Goliath and mumbled, "Not again. My dad fought his dad." You've groaned similar words. I'm becoming a workaholic just like my father, or divorce runs in the family. Goliath stalked your ancestors, and now you. That is how the Israelites felt. Verse 11 says, when Saul and his troops heard the Philistines' challenge, they were terrified and lost all hope. You've seen your Goliath. You know him well. The question is he all you see? You know his voice, but is it all you hear? David saw and heard more. Read his first recorded words in the Bible in verse 26. What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? David shows up discussing God and continues to do so with Saul in verse 37. The Lord, who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. David continues the theme with Goliath. When the giant mocks him, David replies in 1 Samuel 17:45 through 47, "You come against me with the sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. Today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." No one else discusses God. David discusses no one else but God. More than David versus Goliath, this is God focus versus giant focus. David sees what others don't and refuses to see what others do. He sees the giant, mind you. He just sees God more. Look carefully at David's battle cry in verse 45. You come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel. Note the plural noun, armies of Israel. I see only one army of Israel. But David, he sees platoons of angels, the weapons of the wind, the forces of the earth. God could pellet the enemy with hail as he did for Moses, or collapse the walls as he did for Joshua. David sees the armies of God, and because he does, in verse 48, David hurries and runs toward the army to meet the Philistine. Goliath throws back his head in laughter, just enough to shift his helmet and expose a square inch of forehead. David spots the target and seizes the moment. He draws back his slingshot and fires. The stone torpedoes into the skull, and Goliath's eyes cross and his legs buckle. He crumples to the ground and dies. David runs over, yanks Goliath's sword from its sheath, and cuts off the Philistine's head. You might say that David got ahead of his giant. When was the last time you did the same? How long since you ran toward your challenge? You know, we tend to retreat, to duck behind a desk of work or crawl into a nightclub of distraction. For a moment or a day, we feel safe, anesthetized, but then the work runs out, the liquor wears off, and we hear Goliath again. Try a different tack. Rush your giant with a God-saturated soul. Amplify God and minimize Goliath. Repeat after me. Giant of divorce, you aren't entering my home. Giant of alcohol, bigotry, child abuse, insecurity, you're going down. How long since you loaded your sling and took a swing at your giant? Too long, you say? Well, then David is your model. Acts 13:22 says God called him a man after my own heart. No one else in Scripture is called this. And one might read David's story and wonder what God saw in him. The fellow fell as often as he stood. He stared down Goliath, yet ogled at Bathsheba. He defied God-mockers in the valley, yet joined them in the wilderness. He could lead armies, but he couldn't manage a family. A man after God's own heart. That God saw him this way gives hope to us all. Don't we ride the same roller coaster? We alternate between swan dives and belly flops. In David's good moments, no one was better. In his bad moments, could one be worse? The heart God loved was a checkered one. We need David's story. Giants lurk in our neighborhoods: rejection, failure, revenge, remorse. Our struggles read like a prize fighter's itinerary. In the main event, we have Joe the decent guy versus the fraternity from Animal House. Or, weighing in at 110 pounds, Elizabeth the checkout girl will go toe-to-toe with jerks who take and break her heart. In this corner, the tenuous marriage of Jason and Patricia. In the opposing corner, the challenger from the state of confusion, the homebreaker named distrust. Giants. We must face them, yet we need not face them alone. Focus first and most on God. The times David did, giants fell. The days he didn't, David did. Again, we need David's story because we all have giants, yet we need not face them alone. Focus first and most on God. The times David did, the giants fell. The days he didn't, David fell. Test this theory. Test it with an open Bible. Read 1 Samuel chapter 17 and list the observations David made regarding Goliath. I find only two. One in verse 26 and one in verse 36 that essentially say the same thing. Who is this man to defy the living God? That's it. Two Goliath-related comments that question his authority. No inquiries about Goliath's skill, weight, or the size of his shield. David doesn't think of that, but he gives much thought to God. Let's read David's words again, this time counting his references to the Lord. In verse 26, the armies of the living God. Verse 36, the armies of the living God. Verse 45, the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel. Verse 46, the Lord will deliver you into my hand, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Verse 47, the Lord does not save with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. I count 9 references. God thoughts outnumber Goliath thoughts 9-2. Does this ratio compare with yours? No? Well, then David is your man. Some note the absence of miracles in David's story, no Red Sea openings or dead Lazarus is walking. But David himself is a miracle, a rough-edged, walking wonder of God who highlights this truth. Focus on giants and you stumble. but focus on God and your giants tumble. Lift your eyes, giant slayer. The God who made a miracle out of David will make one out of you. Our God still does the impossible.